Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to a special edition of Mean Streets here live on our FTN YouTube page. Happy Tuesday evening to everybody out there. As you see, we are just about 3 minutes away from our first live draft here on Mean Streets. I guess our first high stakes live draft here on Mean Streets, courtesy of NFFC. This is the $350 Rotowire Online Championship. This is a 12-teamer. It's a full point PPR. 6 points for a passing touchdown, quarterback, 2 running back spots, 3 wide receiver spots, a tight end, a flex, kicker, defense. You got 10 bench spots here as well. Looks like a pretty sharp room. Should be a lot of fun. We're going to walk through some strategies, some of my favorite targets, some of my fades, and we're going to do a lot of these here from now until week 1 of the NFL season. Of course, we're just a couple days away from actual football Hall of Fame game. Chicago and Houston should be a lot of fun. Not going to see Caleb Williams in that game. We will see him very soon. Bears fans looking forward to seeing their new franchise quarterback, but we're going to try to do these once a week. We'll try some different strategies. I'm not going to be married to one strategy. Of course, I want to win this thing. At the same time, we'll probably do a couple different things here over the next couple of weeks, a couple different builds, and we'll walk through ADP change, some risers, some fallers. We'll talk about some certain players through camp, some buzz and some news throughout the draft. Hopefully everybody can see the draft board. If you have any questions at all, please hit me up here in the comment section. I'll try to keep an eye on things. We're going to try to obviously keep an eye on this draft as well. So for this particular Rotowire Online Championship, it's $350 entry, top 2 in each league. You get $1,500 for first place. There is, I think it's $1,500 actually, top 2 in each league, including $1,500 first place. That's correct. So we are underway here with CMC off the board at pick 1. I'm in the 7th spot here. $250K overall grand prize, and they're expecting roughly $4,800 in this overall contest. You can check out playnffc.com. The site to check out for all their contests as well. So this is the 21st year after this season as well. And they've given up over $100 million in prizes. So it should be a whole lot of fun here. And a shout out to them. So if you can see the draft board, if you can't really see it that great, I'm zoomed in here. I got like five different screens on the go. I'm actually drafting on a laptop, but I'm zoomed in on another screen so you guys can see the draft board. And we're underway here with CMC and Bijan Robinson there. As the second running back off the board, pick number 2 here. CeeDee Lamb, first wide receiver off the board. Team 4 on the clock here. So this time last year, Bijan, I've seen Bijan go like number 2 overall. I was never a fan. Didn't like that. I like it this year. I don't mind it. I'm a wide receiver guy early, but in that that 1-2 spot, 3 spot, 5 spot, there's Breece Hall there in the 5 spot. And I am on deck. We'll have to have the notifications going because I can sometimes get caught up in the draft, and Amon-Ra there off the board. So I'm going to go with Ja'Marr Chase here. I know he's looking for a new contract. We're going to go with Chase. Consider Justin Jefferson there, but I'll go with Chase. Just given, it's Joe Burrow. There's no Tyler Boyd. There's no Joe Mixon. This is, I think, 2 guys in T. Higgins and Ja'Marr Chase, and see what Mike Gesicki can do in this offense as well, and maybe what third Bengals wide receiver can fill the void that Tyler Boyd is leaving as the old, reliable third down wide receiver in that offense. So Ja'Marr Chase there. Again, this time last year with Bijan, it was all Arthur Smith. I just didn't trust that dude. Cordero Patterson having more red zone rushing attempts than Bijan Robinson will. It happened. Will blow your minds. Not this year, though. Not this year. Bijan Robinson, the second running back off the board. He is my RB2 overall, and Breece Hall is my RB3 overall. Seeing a wide receiver run here now. CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Breece Hall at team 5. Amon-Ra St. Brown at pick 6. Ja'Marr Chase pick 7. Justin Jefferson at 8. A.J. Brown at 9. Garrett Wilson at 10. Nice to see Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers getting along. Jonathan Taylor there at pick number 11, the 4th running back off the board. Puka Nacua in the first round. How about Puka last year? What a steal Puka Nacua was in drafts. What a waiver wire pickup if that happened to be the case for you. Devon Chan, I can't get behind it. I dig the aggressiveness. I guess I don't have the stones. I don't know. Call me a coward, but I have a hard time seeing him go this early. But he a small sample size, but the dude was probably the best running back we had ever seen over a small sample size. And what is it, 8+ yards per attempt, and man, he was cooking on offense. So yeah, these running backs are going. Um, I'm on deck here. Wide receivers available: Chris Olave, Devontae Adams, Drake London, Michael Pittman, top on the board here in terms of ADP at NFC. Travis Etienne, Kyron Williams, Derrick Henry, Rashad White here, running backs. So we're just waiting here on team number 8. And I'll be honest, I was hoping Chris Olave goes there. I'm going to have to take a running back here. I still like Kyron Williams. If I don't go running back here, I probably miss out on the tier that I would like to have. At least one, my first running back, my RB1, kind of like a hero anchor RB type of build. I'm going to go with Kyron Williams here. I still believe that he's going to get a ton of work and a ton of usage. Blake Corum is a nice little player, but I don't think he's going to cut into a whole lot of what Kyron Williams can do and what he did last year. I'm sure they'll scale back a little bit. He probably can't handle CMC like touches. Who can? That's what he was getting towards the end of last season. He suffered an injury midway through the year. Can his body hold up with 300 touches? I don't think so. But I think he's going to be the pass catching running back here in this offense, and he is going to get a lot of the goal line work. And Blake Corum's a nice little piece. The touchdown machine in college, 21 touchdowns or something silly. Short yardage back, and can he handle pass coverage? Can he get on the field in some third down situations? Kyron's talking him up. He's talked him up quite a bit. I was hoping to get a Saquon. I thought it was maybe a pipe dream that Saquon would fall. Derrick Henry, Saquon, Jonathan Taylor. These are running backs that I have a lot of shares of. These are running backs that I'm after in the second round if I can. I am a wide receiver heavy type of drafter. I've kind of always been like that. We'll see. We're going to do some different things here. Not going to ignore the running back position. Obviously haven't here yet, but it'd be interesting to see what ones would have been available to me. But I think some backs like, Josh Jacobs, Pacheco, Rashad White, these guys will be gone. Joe Mixon actually don't mind. It's like a borderline hero type anchor running back for you. Shout out to the crew, everybody in this draft. Love it. Seems like a really good crew. We got Frank in the house. We have my guy Marty in the house. Fellow East Coaster. Where's Marty drafting here? Okay. The team names are hidden. We'll keep it that way. We won't share any secrets here. All right, Michael Pittman here as a lot of wide receivers. So after Puka Nacua, we had Marvin Harrison Jr., Chris Olave. As for wide receivers, Drake London, Nico Collins, DJ Moore, who just got paid. Saw that here before we popped on the live stream. It was 4 years, 110 roughly, I believe. Michael Pittman, and then a friendly reminder: it's the third round reversal here. So I dig being in the back like 7 through 12 if it's gonna be like this. I mean, there's something to be said about getting CMC, of course, and CeeDee Lamb and Tyreek Hill. It's nice to get a piece of one of those three guys, but the third round reversal, I do believe is. I think this time last year I would have said it's very, very beneficial to get CMC because I didn't believe in Bijan and Eckler going as RB2. Pollard was going pretty early. I just didn't really care for. I didn't think it was a huge advantage to be up at the top, apart from just like getting Christian McCaffrey. But this year, I think it's a little bit tighter. I would have put Bijan and Breece Hall in the same tier with CMC, and I definitely like a handful of wide receivers just as much as Lamb and Tyreek. Amon-Ra I like. Chase. There's some questions about Justin Jefferson in the quarterback play there. There's no question about that. So Josh Jacobs would have been available to me. And, looking back, I think maybe I would have liked to take that second wide receiver and then go with Josh Jacobs here. But I'm okay with this start here. Jamar Chase, Kyron Williams. Brennan Ayuk is next on my list in terms of rankings. Man, I don't think he's going to hold out. You're going to get the troubled wide receivers. Can we call them the troubled wide receivers? These are guys that are looking for contracts. Are they going to play this year? Is there a lot of risk in how I'm building here? I don't think so. Brandon Ayuk is going to play. I have Brandon Ayuk ranked as like wide receiver 12. And so I think this is a little bit of a value here. Super efficient, not going to get the same type of volume as some of these other guys. He led the Niners in catches at 75. He led the Niners in everything, yards, catches. I do believe he's tied there with Debo in receiving touchdowns. Of course, Debo had a couple more on the ground. It's a very efficient offense, right? Brock Purdy is last year. He was among the leaders in most categories. Yards per attempt, he was number one. Completion percentage, passing yards, passing touchdowns. He's near the top in a lot of categories and doesn't chuck all that much. It's just a super efficient offense with all those yak monsters like Ayuk and Debo and George Kittle. Chris McCaffrey out of the backfield. Ayuk's going to play, right? Demand a trade, request a trade. These guys going to trade Brendan Ayuk? Like, come on. No chance. I don't think so. Not this year. And they have Super Bowl aspirations. They're looking to win a Super Bowl this year, right? They've been to the dance, 2 of the last 5 years? They've been to the Super Bowl. They've been to the NFC Conference Championship game in 12 straight years that they've made the playoffs. I do believe that's an NFL record. You know that they're going to make a run when they make the playoffs. They got best roster in football. Is trading Brendan Ayuk is not going to benefit them this season. They're not going to get anything in return that's going to be valuable for them to win this year. I think it's something that could have happened before the draft last year, get some draft picks, but the draft is over. Like, they drafted skilled position players, which kind of makes you think there's a possibility. Certainly there was. There's teams calling about Ayuk and Debo. I don't think he's going anywhere. The Niners did this before with Debo a couple of years ago. George Kittle, Bosa, this has happened. Don't be surprised if we see Ayuk sign, on the dotted line before, we get going here week 1. So just to take a look at the board, I'm sure you guys can see this, right? I hope everybody can see this pretty good. I'm zoomed in on the what I think is fairly decent. Let me check on YouTube here. Yeah, I think you can see that board pretty good. Here's the first quarterback off the board. It is Josh Allen. Josh Allen, first quarterback off the board. This is a 6-point passing touchdown. Oh, and the first tight end off the board there too, with Sam Laporta, who set all kinds of records last year. In fact, the Lions had 2 rookie players have 10+ touchdowns. That was an NFL record. Jahmyr Gibbs, the other one there. So Sam Laporta, interesting build here. Team 1, like it, dig it. Actually, the CMC kind of the going to be the hero, the anchor RB there. Same with Team 2 with Bijan Robinson there, and a heavy wide receiver after that. That's a draft that I really do dig. I can get behind. But the Laporta, Allen, first tight end, first quarterback, got 1 wide receiver, got CMC there. Like what's going on there, Team 1. I like what's going on there, Team 2 as well. So we're coming up here, a lot of wide receivers. So we've seen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Rashad White just goes there. 11, 12 running backs off the board. So still a couple that I can get behind here. Patrick Mahomes, again, a 6-point passing touchdown league. Mahomes down year last year. I think he was quarterback 17 in fantasy points per game last season. But like the changes on offense, love the changes on offense. Like that build, Tyreek Hill, Drake London, and Cooper Kupp. I think London's going a touch early, but my goodness, like we should see a breakout from him. Kirk Cousins has been one of the most accurate quarterbacks for years. So as long as he's healthy, I get pretty excited watching Falcons videos today. Not going to lie. Seeing, Kirk Cousins throw to the end zone for London and Kyle Pitts. Like Kyle Pitts has 6 touchdowns in 44 games, roughly. Like, how does that guy have 6 touchdowns? How does a 6'6", 250-pound freak have only 6 touchdowns? Are you kidding me? What's that all about? But he's going to double that this year. So still some wide receivers I like in this range. Man, Stephon Diggs, fallen. George Pickens, I like. T. Higgins, I really like T. Higgins' value, but I got Jamar Chase there. I'm not going to do that. I like Josh Jacobs here quite a bit, to be honest. I think he's a top 10 running back. I may just go with Jacobs and ignore running back here for a little bit. I think that's what I'm going to do. going to roll with Jacobs. Here we go. So Jacobs, what is this? Roughly RB 12, 13. This is a different build. I'm usually more heavy wide receiver. I just wasn't able to get my hands on some of these other ones, but there's some value, I think, at the wide receiver position. Travis Kelce, second tight end there off the board. But yeah, going back to Mahomes, I like there's Stephon Diggs, man. It's tough to what to expect really from Houston. It really is like CJ Stroud. Everybody is really up on CJ Stroud. About a month ago, I saw him go as high as quarterback 2 here, and he's fallen down a little bit. We'll see where he goes in this draft, but he's kind of fallen down in ADP, 6-7 quarterback off the board. We have him ranked pretty high, in our projections over at FTNFantasy.com. We have him to lead the NFL in passing yards, among the leaders in passing attempts, passing touchdowns. You add a guy like Stephon Diggs, who I don't think is washed. I don't think he's washed at all. I think, he was phased out of the offense. The offense changed in Buffalo and Joe Brady took over. It just changed. They didn't take as many deep shots down the field. It was short, intermediate type stuff, and they ran the football a lot. James Cook got a lot of touches. James Cook has a 3.5 rushing touchdown prop, which I just think is remarkable given the fact that I think he's going to have well over 200 carries. I think I would lean over 3.5. Maybe he gets 4.5, 5. Who knows? But, Josh Allen's going to call his own number. 15 rushing touchdowns may not be a thing for Josh Allen again this year, but he's going to get his. He's going to get the 7 or 8. Trey McBride, tight end 3 off the board. Big time player last year in Arizona's offense down the stretch. No, there was no Hollywood at the time. Michael Wilson was hurt. You add Marvin Harrison Jr. in there, but Trey McBride is a heck of a player. And he goes here at the end of the 4th round to team 12. Looking at some of these builds, there's 4 teams that have 3 wide receivers, usually my type of builds there. The DJ Moore, Christian Kirk, Chris Godwin with Bijan, CeeDee Lamb, Nico Collins, Malik Neighbors with Rashad White, Tyreek Hill, Drake London, Cooper Kupp. I like that. Not crazy about Mahomes in that spot, but it is Mahomes. Like a bounce back rate to get the explosiveness back inside their offense, I think is key. They were just it was really not an explosive offense last year. It was a lot of screens, short yardage stuff. Of course, they led the NFL in drops. The wide receivers, that is. What are we coming up in pick 51? Here comes some tight end runs here happening. I might have to get on board. Joe Mixon, I think, is a really good value. I think I am up. Tank Dell goes there. So my wide receiver 3 in this range, I may have to pass. I'm doing it, ladies and gentlemen. I haven't liked this player as much as like the fantasy community has over the past few years, but I am just all in. I talked about him earlier as well. Kyle Pitts. And I know some people are saying, I know what they're saying. I can hear it already. Here we go again. This is, no, I'm not doing it again. Like, I know people come at fantasy analysts, when they get things wrong. We're not going to get everything right. I wasn't on Kyle Pitts last year, and it's simple because of Taylor Heineke and Desmond Ridder. And I already talked about Arthur Smith. It just wasn't interested. And I'm interested this year. It's not just because of Kirk Cousins. It's what I talked about earlier. Man, I'm seeing highlights, and this is not it, but seeing highlights of him, getting end zone targets, red zone targets. He had 5 red zone targets last year. 5. The Falcons threw 17 passing touchdowns last year in 17 games, a touchdown per game. Cousins had 18 in 8 games. Again, a very accurate quarterback. He's going to use both of these guys. I think it's 1A, 1B. I would not be shocked if Drake London and Kyle Pitts had very similar seasons, and I'm talking like within 10 to 15 fantasy points of each other. I think the ceiling is higher for Drake London, but I would not be shocked if this is a 1A, 1B situation. The targets are very similar. Give the edge to London, but man, like could be separated by 5 or 10, and I just would not be shocked at all. So I'm in on Kyle Pitts, and it's not just Kirk Cousins. It's I like seeing Arthur Smith gone straight up. Zach Robinson comes over from Sean McVay. Kevin O'Connell came over from Sean McVay. It's a very similar system that Cousins is going to be familiar with, right? It really is. I'm excited about Darnell Mooney too. I really am. Is it a late round flyer, a best ball type of guy? He's going to have some boomer bust games, but he could be the Jordan Addison type where he's kind of just lost and bust coverage and some shots deep down the field. Let's not forget he's a couple of years removed from a 1,000-yard campaign, playing with really nobody at the quarterback position. It's going to be fun offense, I think. Schedule's super easy. They got a lot of easy games. I mean, the division is not great, but the schedule is fairly easy for the Atlanta Falcons. So we'll see what Kirk Cousins can do at 36, coming off that ruptured Achilles. He's set up to have some success there, and Kyle Pitts is set up to have a season. Got our guy Adam Pfeiffer in the house. Says Chase, your guy Chase. Adam Pfeiffer's wide receiver 1. Jamar Chase. Check out all the rankings over at ftnfantasy.com. Check out everything over at ftnfantasy.com. We have some annual packages over there that you guys can check out. Fantasy football core cheat sheets galore, rankings forever, whatever format you play, we have you covered over at FTN. It was tough, Pfeiffer, to take Pitts over Kincaid. I think both of those guys, those are the targets for me. I want at least one of them. I don't care about all this Dawson Knox buzz. It is true though, like Knox can be on the field. Rashee Rice, Jaden Reed. Not a big early quarterback type guy. There's, a couple that I want to get my hands on that I hope to. There's 4, outside of pick 60 that I'm interested in. We're outside of pick 60 right now. Probably see some quarterbacks go here. Allen, Mahomes, Hurts, and Jackson. We should see like another run coming up. Dave Montgomery goes. I was all in on Dave Montgomery last year. There goes Dalton Kincaid. I am on deck, ladies and gentlemen. Man. Still a little too early for QB for me. Aaron Jones goes. See, I don't like to... Not that there's anything wrong with these picks. I don't like to live in this range for running backs. I really do like the Alvin Kamara, but I really like that team 1. All right. I labeled this guy as a bust in the sleeper and bust bowl prediction series, but it's tough. I had to say somebody was a bust. Who could you say was a bust on Carolina? I said Deontay Johnson, but I'm going to take him here as my wide receiver 3. He should be a volume hog. This is a full point PPR league. The upside, the ceiling is capped. It is capped. I mean, he's got 5 touchdowns in his last 30, 35 games or so, and he's also lost a step in terms of separation. Interesting picks back to back, right? You see Deontay Johnson and Christian Watson. One guy has, a lot of questions, but his ceiling that just seems sky high as wide receiver 4 there to add to team 8. And then Deontay Johnson, who I think has a decent floor, but again, the ceiling may not be fantastic. Hey, Dave Canales is talking him up. He says, game plan. Where's Deontay Johnson at? Where's he at? Right? I mean, he's going to be a big part of the offense. There's no separation last year in that Panthers offense. I mean, Bryce Young didn't throw the ball down the field. Part of it was a play calling, but nobody can get down the field. CJ Stroud goes here as quarterback 5. So this is a little bit of a different build. Like I said, for me, team 7 here, Jamar Chase, Kyron Williams, Vlad McConkey was really hoping to get him on the way back. Not going to happen here in this room. It's they're too sharp. Those have been following my work, here at FTN Fantasy over at Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. We're on there, by the way, daily from 1 to 3 Eastern. Myself and Jake Seeley, Dane Martinez, and just talking up Lad. I got a lot of Lad. He goes here in the 6th round. Been taking him in the 7th and 8th really all year, but I expect him to move up. There's a couple guys here that I expect just to fly up draft boards, and he's one of them. I mean, I just think that a lot of people are talking about the Chargers running the football. I'm interested in Joshua Palmer too. I think there's some value with these Chargers wide receivers. It's not going to run the ball all the time. They're going to run the ball. Don't get me wrong. Like that's going to be a run for a squad. Justin Herbert's going to throw the football too. And there's just so many guys that are just gone from that offense. So many targets that are gone. Keenan, and Mike Williams, and Eckler, and Gerald Everett. There's just so many dudes that are gone here. So looking back, there's still a couple running backs that I wouldn't mind as my RB2 in this range. I can identify them later when they get selected. But there still are a couple. that I don't mind here. All right, so if I don't do this now, I'll be fine. There's one running back that I think is a pretty solid RB2 in Zamir White. I guess I have to do this talking him up as much as I have, right? Still a couple. So I take a high floor wide receiver. I'm going to take a player that I believe in. There's going to be some boomer bust games this season, but I'm going to go ahead and do this. And I think, I really wanted Ladd McConkey as my 4. I think it's okay to do something like this. Jameson Williams is your 4. There's going to be some boomer bust games for sure. But I think if you have a couple high floor wide receivers, like I think if you get him as your 4, it's a big one as opposed to your 3. I think that I have 2 solid ones in Chase and Ayuk, and Deontay is probably a 3, not a 2. I believe in the talent here. I really do believe in the talent in Jameson Williams. He's been behind the 8 ball. I mean, this is a top pick. He really broke out, of course, when he went to Bama, and he suffered that season-ending injury in the championship game. So he didn't really play in the first year. It was week 13. I think he touched the field. He caught 1 pass. It just wasn't a factor. It was late in the season. It's not a factor. Then he has the 6-game suspension, and he's not a factor. Again, he goes through the first 2 months of the season. He's a non-factor. He's not with the team. He's not playing. And you could kind of feel the breakout towards the end of last season. I mean, I thought I felt it. In the last 4 or 5 games, big play, of course, waiting to happen. Yards per catch, high in college, like a lot of big time touchdowns. It kind of reminds me of Deshaun Jackson. He may have like a Deshaun Jackson type career where he doesn't have a ton of catches, but he has 1,000-yard seasons and he's 7-8 plus touchdowns because he can blow the top off the defense. And I think at best we can all agree is probably the 4th option in the passing game. Right, you got Amon-Ra and you got Laporta, you got Gibbs out of the backfield. He's not going to be a huge volume guy, but there's really an opportunity for him to step up and be the wide receiver 2 on this squad. There is. Not that Reynolds was a big time player in the offense, but he's gone. And, in the playoffs, you could see the upside on full display. You could see it, a rushing touchdown, a receiving touchdown in the same game against the Niners, right? He's been showing up and doing some things in camp. And again, that's not the only reason I draft him. I just expect him to have a good camp. I expect him to be very noticeable in camp and playing good. I laughed at the report. I forget who it was from. Covers the Lions and he caught a touchdown and mid-stride, I think he threw up and he finishes, he gets the touchdown, he goes on one knee, wipes himself off, and he gets back going. But Dan Campbell's talking him up. Jared Goff's talking him up. It's a real opportunity for him. I'm in on the breakout campaign, and it could bite me, but I think it's better suited if you get it done as your wide receiver 4. I don't think you want to have him as your wide receiver 3. These boomer bust wide receivers, like I see teammate Christian Watson wide receiver 4. I think Tank Dell will be very boomer bust too, but having these guys as your boomer bust wide receivers as your 4 is solid. You can. There's a couple others that I'll identify here too. But for the most part, everyone has 3 wide receivers. Yeah. So a little bit of a mixed bag there with Deontay Johnson and Jameson Williams, some high floor and high upside type of guy here. So interesting, just the 1 quarterback there in that round. So again, a 6-point passing touchdown. We should see Anthony Richardson go here pretty soon, followed by a couple others. Richardson has, leapfrog CJ Stroud in best ball. The 6-point passing touchdown is a little bit different. He just goes there. And I think it's a good pick. I think it's I think he's going to touch high and over at Underdog Fantasy. I get the appeal though. I understand like the Colts too. Shane Steichen is a hell of a play caller, play up tempo, very quick, run first offense. He's going to run. Small sample size, but he just was awesome. In those 4 games, he was fantastic. Parts of 4 games, right? Rushing touchdowns, 4 of them. They didn't play with Jonathan Taylor, which is interesting. Taylor's Anthony Richardson's not going to score 17 rushing touchdowns. Taylor's going to get a few of those touchdowns. But again, 6-point passing touchdown here. He's going to be more of a, he's still fairly raw as a passer. He's like a sub 60% rate, but Steichen's great. I think everybody's set up. Pittman, short intermediate, down slot, AD Mitchell, one-on-one. He's going to see a lot of one-on-one too, right? You can just like throw it up to him. You can probably have, he could play like the AJ Brown role for Shaden Steichen. It's some one-on-one, chuck it up to him, chuck it deep, right? When boxes are stacked for the run first squads there. What do we got here? So another high boomer bust wide receiver on the board, and Shaheed. 2 backs. Not bad. Could go quarterback here. Really do have a lot of shares of this one particular quarterback. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I'll risk it. Bowl the biscuit. I'm thinking about Khalil Shakir, Romeo Doubs here. I do like Brian Thomas, another high, boomer bust wide receiver. Rashid Shaheed, same sort of deal. Probably better suited. Probably a better pick than JMO. I'm gonna go with Doubs here. I like the value here for Romeo Doubs. I know I have Josh Jacobs. Not too worried about that. Just like pile up some wide receivers here now. Over this next, Jordan Love goes right after that. I mean, he's been the quarterback that I have the most shares of. I like to live in this range around 8 for Jordan Love. Just got paid. There goes Nick Chubb. Thought maybe it's a sharp room. I thought maybe I can get him a little bit later on. Raheem Mostert there. This is some good value for running backs. Like for these are guys that I think are solid RB2s, like James Conner, Zamir White, Raheem Mostert. I know he's getting up there in age. There goes Jaden Daniels. A nice rushing floor there. We have him for just over 600 rushing yards. I think he's gonna knock on the door as a top 10 quarterback. Like the fact he went ahead of Caleb Williams there. I think he's a really good runner. He's a really good runner. There goes Brian Thomas Jr. Chase Brown, first Bengal running back off the board. Yes, hadn't seen Zach Moss. I know those guys were kind of neck and neck in terms of ADP. Chase Brown getting a little bit of buzz running with the first team offense. I think it's gonna be just a straight up timeshare between both of those guys. Chase Brown is better out of the backfield catching passes. There's no question about that. You are on deck. I am on deck here. We'll see what the play is. See if I get sniped. I do have a lot of Jordan Love. It's tough to figure out which of the pass catchers. It's going to be very, very. I think Jaden Reed's going a little too early. I think here is actually fine. In the same round as Christian Watson, I think that's actually okay. Round 6, see him go much higher than that. Dontavian Wicks is getting talked up. Jordan Love says Dontavian Wicks is going to have a monster season. If Dontavian Wicks has a monster season, I'll tell you what, Jordan Love has a monster season, does he not? And I like Dontavian Wicks. Oh, did that pick not go through? I like Dontavian Wicks. He's a good player. We're going to go Brock Purdy. I'm okay with this. Hope Brandon Ayuk plays. I'll tell you what, Brock Purdy will suffer if Brandon Ayuk doesn't play. My team will suffer if Brandon Ayuk decides that he wants to sit out. But this guy's going to forfeit double-digit million dollars. I mean, he's got no leverage too. I mean, the Niners they could franchise tag him next year, UFA in 2026. So, but I think Brock Purdy would be that guy that would suffer the most. And he would take a hit. Brock Purdy would take a hit. But what's quarterback rankings here? Josh Allen 1, Patrick Mahomes 2. We had the reversal. So Allen and then Hurts 3, Lamar Jackson 4, Stroud 5, Burrow 6, Anthony Richardson 7, Kyler Murray 8, Jordan Love 9, Jaden Daniels 10, Brock Purdy 11. Dak Prescott's still there. I do prefer Purdy over Prescott. I just think it's a better offense. Dak's coming off a really strong season. I think he's a good value in around this range. Like he was quarterback 3 last year in fantasy points per game, and it wasn't like a season where we hadn't seen that before from Dak. He had a very similar season, I think, in 2021. It was 2 years before. And he could have another great campaign. Something about Dallas. It's not because I'm rocking the Philly green here. The schedule's tougher. Dude needs a contract, wants a contract. CeeDee Lamb wants a contract. Michael Parsons wants a contract. It's just a lot of things that can go wrong here with Dallas. The offensive line is not as good anymore. It's not fantastic. That's for sure. But Dak's in a good spot. He's going to get paid. He can get 60 million. I really do believe that he's going to get 60, maybe north of 60, and he just has to go and have a very similar season, and he's going to get paid. And it may not be from Dallas, but he's going to get paid. He's a good value here. Again, he was great. He was return profit last year. In a 6-point passing touchdown league here, and in this format, leading the NFL in passing touchdowns. Right, he certainly returned value last season, but interesting, he's still on the board. All right, we're into the 9th round. This is the 350 Rotowire Online Championship. If you are just joining us, welcome in. I'm Chris Meaney here. At Chris Meaney, give me a follow over on the Twitter machine. You're watching a special edition of Mean Streets, and we are live drafting here. High stakes draft with a lot of money on the line. This is top 2 in each league payout, including $1,500 first place. $250,000 overall grand prize, expecting roughly 4,800 teams to play in the overall contest. You can check out playnffc.com, the site to check out for all the goods, to see all their contests there as well. This is their 21st year, and after this season, they will have given out over $100 million in prizes. Fantastic stuff here. So I'm in the 7th spot. This is slightly a different build than I am used to rocking. I am a hero RB type drafter. I like to kind of have an anchor RB there. My one running back that I feel is a top 10. I like to hammer the wide receiver position. I'm in on the elite tight end this year. I definitely want a top 9 tight end. I don't want to live outside of Jake Ferguson. Pat Freiermuth goes there in a second. I mean, Roman Wilson just went down with an ankle injury here today. No word on it. I think he just got rolled up on it. We'll see the extent. But Pat Freiermuth should be the number 2 target in what is a run-first offense, but behind George Pickens there. I don't mind him. I'm not going to take any shots at anybody's teams here. Just trying to draft a good team myself. But I will identify a couple players that I feel like maybe too early or too late, or I'm in on, I'm out on. I'm out on Njoku, but Njoku here in the 9th round after, some of these other guys have gone, including Pat Freiermuth, I think is okay. There goes Zach Moss. It's not too far after Chase Brown. Njoku, hell of a season, great player. The splits were significant with Joe Flacco and compared to with Deshaun Watson. But, there's some talk out of Cleveland that they'll play a little bit more up-tempo. They became a pass-happy squad when Flacco took over. They were first in the NFL in pass percentage, and normally not the case, of course, with Nick Chubb. But we'll see. Nick Chubb, probably won't see him until October in the earliest, but you got to use him, right? He was 100% healthy. I mean, it's hard to imagine them being a pass-happy squad when they do have a guy like Nick Chubb. Sean Watson hasn't looked good either in the 2 years and 12 games with the Cleveland Browns. There goes Khalil Shakir. Like him as a target. So, yeah, again, a different build here for me. Fine with it. Wish I had better wide receivers. That's why I'm wide receiver heavy. I just kind of feel like I like my teams better when I go with one running back. So here maybe could have ditched Josh Jacobs. And I think at the time, like Stephon Diggs was there for me, George Pickens, Terry McLaurin. There goes Dak. And then, still kind of get involved with Kyle Pitts. And then I have a lot of builds with a guy like Zamir White or James Conner as my RB2. Those type of running backs, those couple of running backs in there as my RB2. We'll probably have to get involved with a running back again. This is where I usually, after say round 6 or 7 is where I start to hammer those running backs and maybe get some shares of Nick Chubb. And I mentioned Zamir White. I like Najee Harris. Actually don't mind James Conner, Raheem Mostert. I don't think he's not going to have 21 touchdowns or whatever silly number he had last year. And he's getting a little bit older, but he's not going anywhere, right? He got extended as well. He's just not going anywhere. It's just not going to happen. It's just like Dave Montgomery. He's just not going anywhere. You know what I mean? You're going to have goal line rolls, a lot of touches, be the lead. That's why I think Devon Chan going a touch early. But I see the appeal, right? I know everyone sees the appeal, right? And this is a high upside type of running back that can win you weeks. if I told you that he's going to play 10 games, you'd be like, nice, I'll take it. You know what I mean? He might have like 8 week winning performances. It's not bad. So I'm looking at Brian Robinson Jr. here. I think there's a drop off, at the running back position after a few of these guys. So I think I am going to go with Brian Robinson Jr. I know he's on a team now he's still on the same team, but I've got Jaden Daniels there as a rushing quarterback. I like Javonte Williams a hell of a lot more, but I just don't feel like Sean Payton likes Javonte Williams. I actually do believe the reports that he could get cut, that he's on the bubble there with Samaje Perine. I believe it, man. Just the way I had a lot of Javonte Williams last year, so I watch everything. I'm not trying to come across as that guy, but I don't miss anything. And I'm more in tune with players that have a lot of shares of, and I had a lot of shares of Javonte Williams. I was dead wrong. I thought he was a good target in around 8 or 9. He's going even later than last year. And I just don't think that Peyton is crazy about him. Samaje Perine is a veteran back. I could see him making the squad. I could probably see him actually the one that's cut. Estime's good. He's fine. He's not going to get cut. He's a short yardage back, powerhouse. He'd be goal line back there. Jaleel McLaughlin is in, he's got a lot of touches last year. Got a lot of run towards the end of last season. There goes Javonte Williams. It could turn out to be a fantastic pick. He could be cut and go to the Cowboys. You know what I mean? Like, I think that there's going to be some things that just are going to happen here over the next couple weeks, and it's like probably just like running back. Dudes are cut. Like Samaje Perine could go somewhere and really cut into, someone's third down role and how we view a certain running back. Like, what if Samaje Perine went back to Cincinnati? Like, my goodness, that wouldn't be great for a guy like Chase Brown. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just speculating here. I love Javonte Williams as the player. I just don't think that Sean Payton loves Javonte Williams as the player. I think he's a great buy low in Dynasty if you can afford to wait a little bit for him. I went with Brian Robinson. The other guy that I was actually debating there was Rashid Shaheed. Dontavian Wicks goes there. So, yeah, I'm in on the Packers offense. I think it's going to be really good. I believe in Jordan Love. He was the best quarterback in football from week 11 on. He played some good teams, too. Hit the best QBR over that span. I think he had like 20-some odd touchdowns and a couple picks. Had the best QBR against the Chiefs all year. That was the best defense in football. Lit up the Lions, did some really good things. And with the youngest wide receiver tight end room in football, you expect everybody to grow in what is year 2, year 3, for some. And, if they stay healthy, it could be a really good offense and an upgrade at the running back position. I think Josh Jacobs is better than Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is great down the stretch into the playoffs, but he wasn't healthy and he hasn't been. And I like Josh Jacobs. He faced a lot of stacked boxes last year. He's just a couple years removed from leading the NFL in rushing yards. You can catch it to the backfield. Don't believe in A.J. Dillon. I don't care if he's in the best shape of his life. Marshawn Lloyd's nicked up. There's an out. They can get out of Jacobs if they want. If Lloyd, I like Lloyd as a player. I think he's got free down potential in the future. I think he would have went a little bit earlier if he didn't have the injury issues there that he did have, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. We are looking at wide receiver here. Not going to get involved with a second quarterback this early. Oof. I'm going to take a fourth running back. This one's going to be stinky for people. They're not going to like it. Not going to like this pick. Feed me. I talked about the offensive line being trash, but feed me. Zeke. I think he's got RB2 upside. Am I crazy to think that? Am I crazy to think that Zeke has RB2 upside? I know he's not going to be efficient. He's in sub 4 yards per carry each of the past 2 seasons. I know he's not going to be an efficient running back. Tony Pollard was second in the NFL in red zone rushing attempts last year with 60, 3 behind CMC. I think he only converted like on 5 of them, but a ton of goal line attempts over the past couple of years, a ton of goal line attempts and not great. As the other guy I was debating beside Jahan Dotson. I was just like, I just picked one Washington Commander and Brian Robinson. I do like Jahan Dotson as like, I don't know, everyone was in on him last year at this time and he disappointed, but let's not forget the rookie campaign, right? He had 7 touchdowns in 12 games and more end zone targets at the time. I don't think that the lack of production last year was on Jahan Dotson. I think it was on the play calling. Bieniemy maybe just, I just don't think he had a great season as a play caller. And Taylor Heineke just wasn't good. It's just like a lot of interception worthy throws, just a lot of awfulness, I think, at the quarterback position from Sam Howell, excuse me. And I think Jane Daniels gonna be a good quarterback for Washington. Right? It's just like the 12th different quarterback Terry McLaurin's had in what will be year 6, which is wild to think about. And he's always had 1,000 yards. He just hasn't been able to score touchdowns. Curtis Samuel gone from the offense. It's not a lot of other guys there in that offense that could step up. And again, I think it was Jahan Dotson was out there running just as many routes pretty much as Terry and playing a lot of snaps, but just not getting the looks. There'd be sometimes early in the game where you get some looks and it's like, okay, here we go. And then in the second half, it just wasn't the case. But back for Zeke, I think he can get back up to 40 some odd catches. Is a great pass catching running back again last year. The down year for him was the breakout from Pollard, but he still had over 200 carries and he still had double digit touchdowns. And I think he only caught like 17, 20 passes or something, but he's been north of 40 multiple times. And, I don't believe in Royce Freeman, and Nick Dowdle's he's definitely going to get some touches and some running. He's going to look better than Zeke. It's going to be one of those things where you just watch the two and you're like, man, Dowdle probably deserves more looks, more touches. But I think that as long as Zeke stays healthy and he's durable, then he should do enough to give you kind of RB2 numbers. Like even if it's just 800 yards and 40 grabs and 7 touchdowns, then this RB2 like production could happen. In this range, Trey Benson, Zach Charbonnet, Ty Chandler, Marshawn Lloyd, like actually I have Zeke ranked ahead of Brian Robinson, but I figured he'd be available there. Okay, so let's recap here. We're through 11. So round 10, we had Zach Moss, Khalil Shakir, Dak Prescott goes as roughly quarterback 11-ish, Jacoby Myers, Curtis Samuel, Blake Corum, Brian Robinson, to myself, Rashid Shaheed. I like Shaheed. I think he could be 1,000-yard guy this year. You stay healthy, be the number 2 option for Derek Carr. I'd say that Alvin Kamara probably has more catches than Shaheed. 70 plus again, bunch of checkdowns. Actually led the NFL catches per game. He's just one behind Breece Hall, but didn't play as much as Breece Hall. And Breece Hall is not going to get the same amount of volume through the air as he did last year. There were some massive target games towards the end of last season. It's just not going to happen. All those checkdowns, it's not going to happen. There goes Jaleel McLaughlin, which I think is probably the best Bronco back to own. Although I think they'll be a worse team of football. Them or New England. And Carolina's going to be right there too, but Bryce Young's he's an offseason winner. Bringing in Deontay, drafting Xavier Legette, Brooks out of the backfield. Dave Canales is the head coach. Javian Sanders, like he's an offseason winner. There's another offseason winner that I hope I get my hands on here is my quarterback too. A little bit later on, we'll see if we can get him. So after Shaheed, Brennan Cooks, Javonte Williams goes there. Brock Bowers, Caleb Williams, Donatavian Wicks, Joshua Palmer, great target there here in the 11th. Great target in the 11th. Jerry Jeudy, Gabe Davis, Trey Benson, Zeke to myself, Jahan Dotson, Zach Charbonnet, Ty Chandler, Demario Douglas, Marshawn Lloyd, Mike Williams. He won't be ready to start the season. Big upside player, though. J.K. Dobbins, another big upside type of back we haven't seen in a couple of years. Run for a squad. I think he's a decent target. Jaleel McLaughlin, Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard's he's an okay target. I think he's a good mix if you draft Nick Chubb. Like if you have Chubb and you're just like, maybe Jonathan Brooks doesn't take the backfield until, October, coming off an injury as well. And then on the other side, potentially we see Nick Chubb take over at the same time that Jonathan Taylor kind of takes over. You can swap out the two. There goes Jared Goff. The second quarterbacks are going here. Goff was somebody that I was interested in. So those were actually 2 guys that I was interested in. I'm going to wait here a little bit longer than that. I'm going to be starting Purdy every week anyways and hope that he's just healthy. Quentin Johnson, A.D. Mitchell, Troy Franklin, Xavier Legette, Michael Wilson, Darnell Mooney. Second tight end, not crazy about second tight ends here. Kendra Miller, Doghouse. I could go with both of these running backs. Let's see. I'm going to take the high upside in AD Mitchell. I'm looking at Josh Downs and AD Mitchell. I'm going to go with AD Mitchell there. Don't have a lot of shares of AD Mitchell. I do. I talked about the Colts earlier. It's, run for squad. There's be some one-on-one there, some shots to him. I've been kind of down on a lot of the pass catchers in Indy. I think Michael Pittman's going slightly too high. I just don't think he's going to have the same type of volume. When you look at the splits, Gardner Minshew, when he was with Gardner Minshew, really popped off. Ton of targets, ton of volume. There goes Josh Downs after that. The splits tool is fantastic over at FTN Fantasy. I just love it for, throughout the season. I think it really pays off just seeing, when guys are out and guys come back, you can see some of the volume and production when they were, a certain player missed time and what it meant for other players. It can help you split ties in your fantasy football leagues. It can help you in the betting market in terms of props and DFS as well. Just a fan of a lot of the tools we have over at ftnfantasy.com. Check it out, ftnfantasy.com/pricing. Hit me up any questions at Chris Meaney. Promo code FTN10, save yourself a little bit of cash there. I missed the chat. Somebody asked a couple hours ago where the stream was, but I think somebody just popped it in the channel. So hello, drafters, fellow drafters. If you're hanging out with me, it's been a fun draft. It's been an interesting draft. It's been fun. It's been good. I mean, drafting. Who doesn't like drafting, right? Super fun. This is a different build for me, so I'm a little bit feeling a little bit different about my squad here. It's okay. I get some people I like here. We'll have to get involved with the second quarterback here soon. I think we're seeing the runs. I'm fine, still with. Yeah, there we go. Here's the quarterback runs, ladies and gentlemen. There's one guy that I like in the mid-20s that I'm actually fine with my second quarterback. So I may not even go quarterback here. What do we have? What's on the squad here? Do we have 4 running backs? Kyron Williams, Josh Jacobs, Brian Robinson, Zeke. We have Chase, Ayuk, Deontay Johnson, Jameson Williams, Romeo Doubs, AD Mitchell. A couple of touchdown machines there, I think. And again, Romeo Doubs is going after a majority of them. I think Wick's just after him as well. A couple rounds later, but I mean, Doubs was the guy last year, man. He was the air yard leader, the target share leader, the touchdown leader, the red zone target leader. I don't know, having Christian Watson hurt, and, benefits Doubs, but you got to stay on the field. Got to stay on the field. Jaden Reed was great down the stretch. Dontavian Wicks had some moments. It's gonna be a crowded room. I'll probably stay away from backs. I'm not going to have 2 Carolina wide receivers. Troy Franklin's interesting. I just did a rookie there. Actually, don't mind Michael Wilson. I said earlier, I don't mind Darnell Mooney. I already have Pitts. I kind of don't like the double down. Kirk Cousins is there. Jalen Polk a little bit early. Let's go off the board here a touch. Let's go with TJ Hawkinson. Let's take a second tight end. Let's do it. TJ Hawkins is going to miss some time. May not even see him to week 7, right? With the bye there at week 6, already having Kyle Pitts. I think I'm the second team to take a second tight end. I probably won't do it again. I'll have to hold on to him. I actually talked on the SiriusXM show how I'm not really interested in doing this. If you have an IR spot, of course, it's not going to be the case here. We have an IR spot. You can maybe get away with Hawkinson late, and then you can ride it over the first few weeks with like a Goddard or, I think that Goddard and Schultz are guys that are going to be just kind of frustrating to own this year, and Kmet as well. Luke Musgrave, I kind of think that as well. But like a Hunter Henry or Conklin, a Cade Otton. Maybe roll with those guys for the first few weeks. Taysom Hill, I saw it go earlier there. 20 plus red zone rushing attempts for Taysom Hill. And then just when Hawkinson comes back, you can ditch him. So I don't feel like, and I was kind of against what I said earlier, doing this was kind of against what I said, like being aggressive on Pitts. And then what happens when Hawkinson's back. But, you can roll out Hawkinson in the flex spot. I'm not overly thrilled with my wide receivers. I like that. Honestly, I probably would like a little bit more if Deontay was my 4 and JMO was my 5. But Deontay's my 3, JMO is my 4, Romeo Dubs 5. Like I'm usually my second running back. I kind of live in this 8 to 9, 10, 11 range. It's like hammer these running backs. So I'm used to maybe like another stud wide receiver. And I think that was my thinking here is TJ Hawkinson over some of the wide receivers that were available for me at the time. And there's a couple others that I like that I'll round out my draft with that I think I can get a little bit later on. So TJ Hawkinson, monster season last year. There goes Jalen Polk. So sharp room. You're not going to get all the guys that you have in your queue here, but Polk is one of those guys that I like as a target in round 13. It's like his touch higher than his ADP, but you get a guy that you like and you go get him. And Jalen Polk should get a ton of targets there. He really should. But you have bad team, bad offensive line. You'll see Brissett probably for quite a bit, but it's a very bad wide receiver room too. And opportunity off. I would expect him to be the one, even though Douglas went earlier and he was decent last year in terms of volume and stuff. He's a quote unquote veteran inside the wide receiver room. They still have Juju. They just like a lot of just not so good wide receivers. It's a very bad wide receiver room. But Jalen Polk's a player I like, and I'm really excited with the future with him and Drake May. I think should be a really nice 1-2 punch. I think we're talking about them, as early as this year. I think we'll see some games from May, and maybe this time next year it's a nice best ball stack people are talking about. I have a couple shares in best ball, but not a lot of May because I don't expect to see a whole lot of him. So here we are, round 13. There goes Darnell Mooney. I liked what Team 1 had going on there earlier. You see that? If I zoom in a little bit, will that help? Yeah. So Christian McCaffrey, Michael Pittman, a little bit high. Don't love him as my wide receiver 1. I think we'll see some regression from him. But I'm, at that point of the draft, with the third round reversal, you really do miss out. But Laporta, Allen, Ridley, Kamara, good target, Swift, Coleman, Lockett, Zach Moss, Mike Williams, J.K. Dobbins, Darnell Mooney, Adam Thielen in there to kick us off for round 14. Team 2 here, Bijan Robinson, DJ Moore, Christian Kirk, Chris Godwin. Don't mind that start. Don't have a lot of Kirk. Like the value on Godwin. Still think Moore is going to be a baller. Ramondre Stevenson, Rashi Rice, Pat Fragman with Anthony Richardson. Gus Edwards, like him as a target. Khalil Shakir, like him as a target as well. Marshawn Lloyd, Jaleel McLaughlin, like Xavier Legette, and the Jets defense. First defense off the board, it is the New York Jets. CeeDee Lamb, Nico Collins, Malik Neighbors. That's a hell of a 3. Rashad White there is the anchor, the RB1. Lamar Jackson, Jaden Reed. So don't mind him as the 4th. I think there'll be a lot of inconsistency there in the game from Reed. George Kittle, high upside guy. James Conner, RB2, right? Perfect RB2 guy coming off his first 1,000-yard season. He's got like 35 touchdowns in 3 years in Arizona. He's not going anywhere. Last year was deal too, right? I mean, Benson's going to be the back of the future back in the desert, but Connor's still the back. He's gonna miss a little bit of time. He's never had a full season, but give him 15 games. He's RB10 in fantasy points per game, I think, each of the last 2 seasons. Addison, Dak Prescott, Demario Douglas, Chuba Hubbard, Jalen Polk, Bucky Irving in there. Bucky Irving with the handcuff with the Rashad White pick earlier. So I am coming up again. My queue did get took a little bit of a hit. Q took a little bit of a hit, ladies and gentlemen. That's going to happen. Defenses are going here. Can't really get behind it this early. Ricky Purcell goes. Rico Dowdle is the guy that was interested in to have the Cowboys backfield there. Not a big handcuff guy, but I think that was one that could pay off for me. It's only 2 guys I believe in Dallas. Wan'Dale Robinson is interesting, I guess, in a PPR format. Where's the upside? Where's the ceiling? I think this time yesterday I would be all over drafting Roman Wilson. Not sure the extent of the injury there. I may do a little bit of a reach. I still need a second quarterback. You know what? Kirk Cousins is a second quarterback at this point of the draft is actually okay to do. Yeah, there's another guy I like. I could do 3. You know what? I'm just gonna I'm going to go with Malachi Corley. I'm going to go a little early, a little reach. I think he should be in this range, though. He may get a lot of run. He might get a lot more run than you think in the slot. With the Jets, Mike Williams not going to be around to start the season. He's had some issues dating back to his Clemson days. So we'll see. Troy Franklin, a little bit of a rookie run here. All the rookies kind of going late here. We had Jalen Polk in the 13th, Xavier Legette right after him, Ricky Purcell, Malachi Corley, Troy Franklin, and Jermaine Burton. So a lot of rookies here off the board. What do we have? We have 1, 2, 3. We got a few more picks here. We are in round 14. We got 5 more picks. We will need to pick a defense and a kicker, a team kicker, which I like. There goes Estime. Cole Kmet, man. I mean, you know what? Why not? At that point, you know what I mean? Like, he's got Caleb Williams there on the squad. Not the first tight end. Now it's the second tight end, Trey McBride, right? I mean, there's guys like Kmet and Schultz who take a bit of a hit with the additions on their respective clubs, right? TJ Chark is a nice target. Had him circled. Draft room sharp. Everybody's got their guys, and they're not afraid to take them. And I think that's good. You want to take your guys. I'm bummed I didn't get Ladd McConkey. I'm bummed I didn't get my guy Zamir White. Those are 2 guys that I like. All good. How many teams have 2 quarterbacks here? No. Demarcus Robinson. Snipe. That was my pick. Oh, we are getting thin at wide receiver. We are getting thin. Braylon Allen. If I had Brees probably at this point. Major Dillon uninterested. Man, Quentin Johnson, I just don't. It's tough to. I just don't think he's getting on the field. 3 wide receiver sets. I just don't see it. Something happens to Chark. Mims. Yeah, I could do a little Mims there. I could also just go with Kirk Cousins. And I think I will. As the second quarterback, he's he's obviously not going to give me any running. You hope that he's healthy. I think he's on the same level as Tua. I mean, Tua was like quarterback 17. He doesn't run. Of course, he's got Tyreek. Very tough schedule for Tua, especially down the stretch. Very tough schedule for Tua. There's a lot of outdoor games, a couple divisional games, the tough defenses there. Kirk Cousins is my second. It's okay. I'm always going to start Brock Purdy over him, although the schedule's fairly easy, but I'm always going to start Brock Purdy over him. I mean, that offense, I got to. But a couple stacks there, it's not best ball, but it's not something I wanted to do. But got a little bit of Ayuk and Purdy in my life. Got a little bit of Kyle Pitts and Kirk Cousins in my life. Wish I had Darnell Mooney. 4th defense off the board, the Baltimore Ravens here in the 15th round. Braylon Allen. So we're getting into the handcuffs, the high upside, running backs, a second tight end, a second quarterback. You'll see some teams draft a couple defenses there. Derek Carr, wow. I mean, I don't hate it at this point. There's a couple of guys I'd rather have than Derek Carr. But I definitely like him over Rodgers, and I can get behind him over Baker and Deshaun Watson too. I think I like Watson and Baker a little bit more, but I'm not crazy about Baker or Watson rather. No, I'm not really at all. So Rashad Bateman just goes. He was getting hyped up again, but he's already dealing with an injury. You see the Bateman with the Lamar Jackson team. So many teams got quarterbacks here. 2 quarterbacks. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Got Jordan Love. I think that's just a solo quarterback squad there. CJ Stroud solo. Joe Burrow and Tua. Jayden Daniels, Justin Herbert. I think you want to take a second quarterback for sure. A little bit earlier than maybe you'd think if you had Jayden Daniels. Caleb Williams and Matthew Stafford as the 2 quarterbacks there for Team 12. Into round 15. So the last 2 rounds, there's some targets here that I that I like. I dig. I mean, Malachi Corley, I take. I also like Troy Franklin. I think there's a real opportunity for him, um, to get targets right away. We're going to see Bo Nix, whether he wins the job or not. We'll see him at some point. I expect him to win the job. Getting all three quarterbacks getting a little bit of a run there, and that's going to happen. Dalton Schultz, again, fine player, nice tight end. He's the second tight end here for Team One. I think Team One took Sam Laporta earlier. It's just another body, in town. There's Will Levis. Love it. That's my guy. Love it. Marty. He must be listening. No, I'm kidding. Marty knows he's super sharp. But he's been listening, he said, to a little bit of me and Jake, and we're discussing. I think he's set up to have a lot of success, man. He could run too. He did a little bit of that sometimes. He's athletic, but I'm just a big believer in Brian Callahan. I just think he's a hell of a play caller, man. And Will Levis has to be one of the biggest winners in the off season. He has to be, because look at that wide receiver room. It's one of the better ones. It's a top 10 wide receiver room. Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd. Say what you want about Tyler Boyd, reliable third down wide receiver. I mean, he was the go-to guy in the offense last year for Brian Callahan as the third down wide receiver. And you have two running backs who can catch the ball to the backfield, and Pollard and Spears. So I think it's going to be. I think that they're going to be a fun team this year. I really do think that they're going to be a fun squad to watch. I think defense may surprise some people as well, but it should be a fun squad. You are up. I was thinking about Will Levis. I'm glad I pulled the trigger on Kirk Cousins. I'll tell you that. Tank Bigsby. Can that guy get any run? Will Shipley impressing today in camp. We're getting down to it. I really do like the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, and I'm going to roll with them. I think they're going to be an interesting defense too for special teams. Every league is a little bit different, but TJ Watt, get Patrick Queen from the Ravens. They got a good defense. Plus, again, the special teams. I don't know. We may see teams just decide to kick it through and say, go ahead and start at the 30 or the 35 or whatever. But we also, in the XFL, there was some returns, and they got a guy like Cordell Patterson who holds the record for the most, touchdowns, kickoff touchdowns, like a 9 or 8 or 9. I think he's got 9. I heard him talking about the new kickoff rules, and one day he was feeling himself. I heard him talking. He was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna own this. Oh yeah, I can't wait." And then the next day he hated it. I hate this. And the Steelers are throwing everything at him. They're throwing everything at him. Well, why wouldn't they? Throwing every kind of kick, right? They're trying to defend it, trying to figure it out. So why wouldn't they? But it's be interesting. I like Steelers defense. One of my favorite targets. Schedule does get really tough towards the end of the season. Oh man, it's they got a bunch of divisional games mixed in with, I think, KC and the Eagles. But listen, we'll worry about it then. Zay Jones, yeah, we're getting pretty deep here into the draft. Will Shipley was on my short list. It was Roman Wilson. It comes a point, right? I mean, we haven't heard anything super significant about the injury just yet. Would have went a lot, I think, a couple rounds earlier if we did know anything. Appreciate you guys taking the time to hang out here. Again, we're going to do a few of these. We'll do one again next week. I'm in New York this week for Jake Seeley's Flex Leagues. I'll get back midweek, and we'll probably do another one towards the end of next week. We'll try to find some time. It could be a weekend thing. It may actually just end up being a weekend thing, a Friday or a Saturday. Maybe I can squeeze one in on Thursday or Wednesday when I get back. But it'll probably be a weekend thing, and we'll try to do one of these every week. We'll try some different builds. Again, just this one was a little bit of a different, those that have been following the drafts that I've done, this is a little bit of a different build. I'm a little bit more heavy wide receiver, but there's a lot of sharp people in here, and I don't think you can, get by punting the running back position. Tank Bigsby was didn't do a whole lot last year, did he? Didn't really touch the football, struggle with some fumbles, and I thought he'd get a little bit more run. Another year of Doug Peterson talking about limiting or cutting back on the workload for Travis Etienne. I don't really see it. I got 4 backs. He could be my 5th. At this point of the draft, you're just kind of, you're shooting for you're shooting for upside. You're getting handcuffs. You're getting kind of next man up type running backs. I think you want to have you have a running back that should an injury happen, would he be in a timeshare or would he get a majority of the work? I think Bigsby's one of those guys that would get a majority of the work should something happen to Travis Etienne. So this Cowboys defense went after the Steelers. We had Tyron Tracy Jr. there. Just not a lot of competition for touches behind Devin Motors Singletary. Luke Musgrave here. Quentin Johnston, goes after Chark. With the news, he's become a value really with him not getting on the field in 3 wide receiver sets. He's dropping passes, in training camp, all those things. He didn't have a good rookie campaign. I think fairly raw as a route runner, but I do believe that he can still grow. Like I believe in the talent, and I don't think he was used properly last year. It may take an injury for him to, get the type of usage that you want. But at that point, as 16, and I kind of dig what Team 11 is doing there. Actually, it's a lot of Chargers. It may be too much. This is not a best ball format. But hey, Herbert with Palmer, Chark, and Quentin Johnston. Oh, baby. Got some stacks there. He's got McConkey too. Wow. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot on one team on what could be a run first team, which should be a run first team, a run football. But Herbert is a decent value because he's his upside is high. We've seen it before, and they're going to have to throw the football to win football games. But um, hmm, interesting, interesting strategy there. And if one of those guys goes down, if something happens to Chark, Quentin Johnson kind of steps in. But my drafts, I'm kind of not really playing for injuries. I don't really love to handcuff my guys. I like to handcuff others. If something happens and you have that guy, kind of feels like certainly when I think about running backs, I like investing. Or if you are a top pick like CMC, Elijah Mitchell makes sense, or Algier makes sense with Bijan, or Braylon Allen makes sense for Brees Hall, Shipley for Saquon. These guys do make sense with the high investment, but it's tough sometimes to just have they're holding on to that running back on your bench the whole time, and you need an injury for it to pay off. But if injuries are going to happen, of course, and if you have somebody else's handcuffed, you could. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't work out. It can really maximize your upside there. Okay, so I am up. Stop rambling and make a draft pick. It's just a little early to go kicker, I think. Still a little touch early for me. I could do a second tight end just because I'll have 3 tight ends on this roster. I don't hate it. Hawkinson really wasn't my plan, but he did fall. He fell a little bit further than I thought. I'll get a 3rd tight end here because I may have to fill the void, if something does happen to Kyle Pitts before Hawkinson. There could be some sort of setback there. But the way that my wide receivers were kind of built, I felt like Hawkinson was a better pick than some of those other wide receivers. Like come week 7, I'd like him a little bit more than Michael Wilson most likely, and some of these other rookies that went like Jermaine Burton, Wan'Dale Robinson. The ceiling's a little low there for Wan'Dale. 49ers kickers. So we're seeing some kickers go here. Team kickers in the 18th round, Baltimore and the Niners there. Makes sense. Tucker. Justice Hill goes here in the 18th round. We are getting near the end of it. Appreciate everybody taking the time here to hang out. It's been a fun draft. It's draft season, baby. I like to wait a little bit longer in some of my home leagues, but I there's something to be said about drafting early. You hope injuries don't happen, but you get some of the value, right? And some of these you draft. I've been drafting for months, and I just mean like in my home league, I kind of like to wait it out a little bit. But you could really see I could see some of the rises. I could feel I don't want to call them reaches, but I could feel people getting guys that they want to get at certain points. Um, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you feel good about a guy, you go and get that guy. I mean, you don't have to reach a couple rounds, but you go and get that player that you want. There's nothing worse than waiting. I kind of had that with Jalen Polk. I thought, man, should I do Polk here or should I do Hawkinson? It's like, maybe I'll get Polk on the way back. He goes a couple picks later. So it's one that kind of stings, but it'll be all right. We'll do a few of these and we will get Jalen Polk. We'll have some Polk shares. It's actually one of the most owned wide receivers I have in best ball. It just goes so late. Right. I know that the ceiling is not going to be high and I'm going to score a lot of touchdowns. Texans in a dome kicker. I like Jake Elliott. I like myself some Jake Elliott. Falcons are not a bad option here either. Like kickers in a dome. Texans could score a lot of points. Get a good kicker. Falcons also have a good kicker. I'll go with the Texans. I'll take the Texans as my team kicker, and we'll just roll with that. We got a Week 14 bye there, and we have a Steelers Week 9 bye. Could see some teams here draft a second defense. Seen that before. Seen that. Colts was on my radar too. Is these dome teams kind of lean with them? Good offenses, of course, good kickers. Dustin Tucker in Baltimore. But yeah, you got Coup there. You got Falcons in a dome, Colts in a dome, Texans in a dome. I tell you what, Detroit, good option too. I think Badgley he's done, right? He just got cut. They signed a kid from he's a goat kicker. I forget his name. It's escaping me. I actually have kicker rankings over at ftnfantasy.com. It's escaping me right now, but he's just setting records. I was excited about him anyways, like potentially winning the job. And now that Badgley is hurt, we're going to see him. He'll be the kicker. And dude can kick, man. He can it's Jake Bates. Dude can kick. Go watch some Jake Bates highlights. Jake Seeley would hate me for this, but dude can kick. He's got a hell of a leg, man. Lions playing a dome in 14 of 17 games. I really like Goff as a target too. Like, he's kind of like borderline QB1. He's kind of right there. I could see him having a top 10 season. He's in second in the NFL in passing yards the last 2 years, third in touchdowns. His home and away splits are pretty significant, but 14 games in a dome this year just happens. Like most of his road games happen to come in a dome this year, which is beneficial for him. He's got a good offensive line. He's got a great team offense. All the whole band's back together. Everyone's back for another run. Yeah, the lines are set up. I mean, the playoff schedule is tough. I think like 2 of the 3 games are outside for him, which are tougher opponents. But the first part of the season, there's a lot of dome games just throughout the whole season. There's a lot of dome games for him. All right, we got one final pick here. We'll highlight a few dudes. See what we can get here towards the end of the draft. Bengals, yeah, picking, just mostly kickers, and here in the last 2 rounds, a couple defenses sprinkled in. Kadarius Toney, I would never think about it. That's some great highlight reel packages already from Kadarius Toney, right? Getting rocked, throwing footballs at dudes, the throwing touchdowns to Xavier Worthy. Love to see it. Don't need a third tight end, I'll tell you that. Or a fourth tight end. AJ Dillon, no chance. Miles Sanders, man, can't do it. Garendo just got hurt. He's gonna be out weeks. Dylan Labe, I don't know, man. I just this is Zamir White season, and if Zamir White went down, I don't, it'd just be a mess there with Madison and Labe. Sir, Sermon, I can kind of get behind, and we've seen Taylor have some injuries. It's not bad. What's the build look like here? Man, a month ago I was just getting Will Levis here, and people seem to be liking Will Levis. Thanks, team 2. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wide receivers. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 running backs. It's just a guy who will probably drop. Should something happen, I'll probably take a running back here. Should something happen, like there's some sort of injury. You hope it isn't the case, but I'll roll with Trey Sermon here. Actually, you know what? I lied. One of my sneaky sleeper picks. Oh, this team's going to be bad. Do I want to do Reynolds or do I want to do McCaffrey? We'll go with Reynolds. I was going to go Trey Sermon. But decided to go with Josh Reynolds. So let's recap this for a couple minutes here. So the first round, those that are just checking in, we had CMC, Bijan Robinson, CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill. We had Breece Hall there as the third back, pick 5. Then a big, heavy wide receiver run here. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson. Get Jonathan Taylor there and Puka Nacua. So rounds out the first round. I don't see anything wrong with anything here. I mean, I just Jonathan Taylor is my RB4. Bijan's my RB2. Hall is my RB3. I like Puka. I'm fine with him. In the first round, actually, I have him ranked ahead of Garrett Wilson. And then Jahmyr Gibbs. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is a great running back. I don't think that Dave Montgomery is going anywhere. Personally, I just don't think that's going to happen. But those two can coexist. They could be, Gibbs could be, a low end RB1 and Montgomery could be a low end RB2. He's still probably going to be among the leaders in red zone attempts, rushing attempts. Talk to you about the games inside the dome. Good offense, good offensive line. Montgomery's a closer. Me personally, I have Saquon ranked ahead of him. I may even consider Kyron and Derrick Henry ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs, honestly. Devon Achane is too early, but for this team, 11 is the RB2. I can swallow that a little bit more. And the wide receivers are good here. Like, this is a good build. I like Evans, I like T. Higgins, and I like McLaurin. I like all 4 of those wide receivers. In fact, I think that there's value with all of them. I have Mike Evans as like a wide receiver 14. Quick math here. He's just outside of that. And T. Higgins, great value. He's put up wide receiver 1 like numbers before. I think wide receiver 11, wide receiver 17, maybe. Last year was just a mess. He got hurt. Burrow got hurt. And I just think, it's going to be a whole lot of him and a whole lot of Chase. I think he's a really good target in round 4. As you could get, depending on your build, as your wide receiver 3, getting him in here as the wide receiver 2. And Terry McLaurin, 1,000 yards in 4 straight seasons, doesn't score the touchdowns, but maybe Jaden Daniels can kind of unlock him. He's always finishes as like that wide receiver 2 that nobody wants, like the unsexy wide receiver. It's like, Terry, okay. But this is quarterback 12 for Jaden Daniels, and what he's done over the course of his career with piss poor play at quarterback. And I believe in Cliff Kingsbury as a play caller, more so than a head coach. So I think Terry's a really good target. I like this team 11 build, even though Achane I think is too early. I really would have liked the build if it was like Taylor and Barkley. I would have been like, kidding me? Taylor and Barkley? And then still end up with Evans, Higgins, McLaurin, and McConkey. But the thing here is, again, one more time, like you can do this with a rock solid RB1 in Taylor. I think that you can afford to do it. I just don't really like the price and like the thought of him being my RB1. But I am a coward. I'll admit that. The rest of the team is good. I have Ingram, right? Target monster. Jaden Daniels got the rushing floor there. Singletary. So, Singletary and Miller and Roschon, not so much, but Singletary is going to get the touches. Brock Bowers, Palmer. But yeah, this is the Charger squad, right? So I got it now. It's Evans, Higgins, and McLaurin is good 1, 2, 3. And then a bunch of Chargers wide receivers there and a couple Arizona guys in Zay Jones and Dortch. Excuse me. Pretty solid build. The Charger Wada thing makes Makes me a little bit uncomfortable, but pretty solid build. Saquon, Marvin Harrison Jr., Chris Olave, Kyron Williams to myself. I still believe he's going to be a touch machine. I still believe he's going to be a touch machine. Catch a lot of balls out of the backfield. Lanes are just opened up in that Sean McVay offense for him. And I'm excited about the value. I debated between Henry. It's a full point PPR league. I lean Kyron with the catches, but wouldn't be shocked if Henry scored a touchdown per game. Right? I mean, Gus Edwards led the NFL in goal line attempts. I think he was behind Josh Allen, but he led all backs. I think 12 of his touchdowns were goal line touchdowns. 12 of the 13 were inside the 10. And Lamar Jackson's not like Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts. He's only had 5 attempts inside the 5. So he's not going to call his own number a lot. He only had 1 rushing touchdown inside the 5. And you're swapping Gus Edwards for Henry. And all those attempts that Gus Edwards got, and you just feel like Henry's going to get more. And he still had double-digit touchdowns last year, playing on a team that was bottom 5 in offense, poor quarterback play, poor play calling, bad offensive line. Now he goes to a team that was number 1 in rushing, number 1 in rush percentage, neutral game script, right? FTN fantasy. I think actually neutral game script, they were like 5 or so, but they're number 1 overall. They like to run the football. That's what they want to do. And they got a closer in Henry, and I still think he's got a lot to offer. And he was taken off the field a lot when they were down. This is not going to be the case here. So I think Henry's a good target, but I lean with Kyron with the full point PPR there. Travis Etienne, I think he's an underrated back. You know, I talked about Tank Bigsby and just taking a flyer on him. I mean, this Etienne's backfield. He was a lot better in the red zone last year than I thought he would be. I thought that's why they drafted Tank Bigsby, rather, short yardage back, red zone stuff. But it was a whole lot of Travis Etienne. Breece Hall, Travis Etienne start, and wide receivers are not too bad. Debo and Amari Cooper is underrated. Hollywood Brown, I like as a target. Cortland Sutton, I think, is undervalued to touch, right? Should be a target hog there. Not going to get double-digit touchdowns, but there's a lot of question marks outside of him. It's a bad football team. They're going to throw the football. They're going to have to throw the football. Cortland Sutton, I think, is good as a good wide receiver forward, like Dalton Kincaid. Like this build. Pretty solid, despite that's not how I like to go about my drafts. It's RB, but okay, just missing that alpha. Tyreek Hill, Drake London, Cooper Kupp. I was actually just going in order here, and now I'm getting sidetracked with the teams. I'm going to wrap up here in a few anyways, but let's just continue to go through the order. ETN, Drake London. I think he's going to have a breakout season. There's a price to pay. I feel better about him as my wide receiver too. I like this. You know, I see him best ball as wide receiver 10, pick 12. Like these wide receivers are pushed up. The backs are pushed back in best ball. You know, you make a case for going the other way, but I certainly can get behind the Tyreek Hill and Drake London. Start with Cooper Kupp. Are you kidding me? Like that. Nico Collins in there. The Texans wideout I want to own for sure. DJ Moore, Michael Pittman. I think just a slight early. Again, at this point, the guys that I have ranked ahead of him: Devontae Adams, Mike Evans. I do have DK Metcalf ranked ahead of him. I do have Brandon Ayuk, Devontae Smith, Debo Samuel. I guess I'm a big Michael Pittman hater. I like the player. I just feel like this is going to be a run for a squad, and was a whole lot of Gardner Minshew peppering Michael Pittman. Downs missed a little bit of time. You add AD Mitchell. You have Jonathan Taylor with backfield, and a little bit of a raw passer in Anthony Richardson. But again, I'll digress there. Devontae Adams, good value. Mike Evans, again, 3rd round reversal here. So Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, DK Metcalf, Jalen Waddle, Isaiah Pacheco, love it. Like this play. It's like perfect. I think like that may be like him and Jacobs are kind of my cutoff for the hero RB type strategy. I like Mixon. I get behind it too. You see Team 9 did it. Hero RB with Mixon, has both Cleveland backs and Chubb and Ford. Kind of like how that build happened there. Roll with Ford, make the swap with Chubb, got Mixon. Mixon's just always undervalued, you know, catching balls out of the backfield, good offense, better offensive line. But Pacheco was one of my favorite targets last year. I could see the usage through the air happen towards the end of his rookie campaign into the playoffs. And then, you know, he wasn't really running with the first team offense in, 2 years ago as a rookie, kind of came on there towards like the middle part of the season. And then last year was really catching a lot of balls out of the backfield. Great hands and sneaky little route runner. And man, he runs hard. And Jerick McKinnon is a UFA. So I think we could see like Pacheco, like 50 catches. 50 catches, I think, is possible in one of the best offenses in football. I like Pacheco. Brandon Ayuk in here, Devontae Smith. I like Kellen Moore coming to Philadelphia, right? These guys are going to be lined up differently over the field. There'll be some creativity inside the offense. This is a team that didn't run motion at all. and they're going to run a lot of motion. And I think it's going to do wonders for Devontae Smith. I think, I could make a case Devontae and AJ, very similar seasons. I think obviously the ceiling is higher with AJ, but maybe more catches and just used differently with Devontae. Maybe a little bit more in the slot here and there. So excited about him. Deebo Samuel, he's fine, right? I mean, he's going to miss a little bit of time maybe, but still just a stud in the engine, the heartbeat of the 49ers offense. I prefer Brandon Ayuk there. Cooper Kupp, I mean, certainly some risk now, over 30, injuries an issue. Still solid. And to get him as your wide receiver 3, something I can get behind. I can co-sign. I like this start. Walker, Montgomery, Harris, Spears. Backs are okay. Probably would have just said no to Mahomes and got into a back, but again, 6-point passing touchdown. Like getting Cooper Kupp as the third wide receiver, Drake London is the second, as opposed to 1 and 2 for London and Kupp. I like that build. Neighbors, going to be awesome, but can Daniel Jones get him the football? Right? It's really what's going to come down to. If Neighbors was drafted by Arizona, we would be drafting Neighbors in the second round here, like Marvin Harrison Jr. It's just not the case, right? And the quarterback play is it's not great. But he should get all the volume that he can handle. I mean, he could even get top 10 volume at the wide receiver position. Christian Kirk, Sam Laporta, touchdowns may come down a bit, but still could see him as tight end 1 overall. Josh Allen there is my number 1 quarterback. I expect him to 15 rushing touchdowns, probably come down a bit. Of course, he lost 2,000 yards roughly and 80% of his end zone targets with Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs there. But I believe in the Kincaid breakout, and Keon Coleman's going to be a touchdown machine for Josh Allen. Throw it up to Keon. He's going to do you wonders. Chris Godwin, great value, right? Target machine. Unlucky, I think, in the touchdown aspect. Same amount of red zone targets, I believe. Mike Evans is a cheat code inside the red zone, but Godwin, I think, is a good target, volume guy. Going to go back into the slot this year, which I think is good for him. Rachaad White. Rachaad White was one of my guys last year too, right? It's like him, Pacheco. These were the guys I was, you were able to get in the 6th round because as your RB2. A little bit uncomfortable as the RB1, but volume should still be there. James Conner, Rachaad White, it's a pretty good 1-2 punch, not too shabby. The catches may come down a little bit just with Bucky Irving there. I saw that this owner did get Bucky Irving, so base is kind of covered there, but borderline RB1 for me. Patrick Mahomes, again, I talked about him, should be better with more explosiveness inside the offense. Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, stretch the field. Should help out Travis Kelce too, right? He's a little bit easier to bracket and double him last year. When stretch the field a little bit more, help him out. Mari Cooper, good value, right? Target machine, number 1 in created catches last year, according to our advanced stats over at ftnfantasy.com. Zay Flowers, big time separator. I'm a fan. Right, I like him. He's a target of mine. He went just before. I probably would have went with him over Josh Jacobs, and then you'd see me maybe dive into Zamir White or James Conner as my RB2. But Zay Flowers just went ahead of me, and I think Isaiah Likely's headed for a breakout campaign, but they didn't do a whole lot there. Bateman, I don't believe in, and Odell's gone, and it's just they drafted a guy, but don't expect a whole lot. So Jacobs, to me, again, what I'll say about Jacobs is that he's on a better offense. He's a couple years removed from leading the NFL in rushing yards. He saw a lot of stack boxes last year, which wasn't the case when he led the NFL in rushing yards. Derek Carr was able to move the ball down the field, help out his running back. And last year, I mean, listen, you watch receiver, you could see the quarterback play and how bad it was last year for the Raiders. Couldn't move the ball. Josh Jacobs goes to Green Bay, an upgrade at the running back position. He's been durable. He's been healthy. He's battled through some things, but he missed a little bit of time last year, and that's when Zamir White popped off. But Jacobs is he's a good running back, and I don't believe in AJ Dillon. I like Marshawn Lloyd as a player here in round 11. I like the player, I like the target, but I think this is Josh Jacobs' backfield, and he's going to catch balls out of the backfield, and he's not going to see any stack boxes in Green Bay with those weapons that Jordan Love has. I think he's an RB1. Get him as my RB2. James Cook. I like him too, man. I think he's getting a lot of touches, but just I'm hesitant to draft him sometimes because of the touchdowns. Just don't know how many touchdowns he's going to get. That bothers me. It's hard to predict, but man, Allen just takes all the touchdowns. I see Vegas hanging the 3.5 rushing touchdown prop for James Cook. I'll probably take the over on that one, but my goodness, probably sweat that one out. He's going to have a couple 2 touchdown games, won't he? But man, when Joe Brady took over, it was a run first team. They like to run football. Travis Kelce, tight end 2, again, not 1,000 yards last year, but could have, if he wanted to play that final year, looked a little slower. Age, injuries, battling through it. Listen to him on New Heights podcast talking about it, battling through it. Start of the season, end of the season, battling through some things, but really flipped the switch in the playoffs, didn't he? And he was fantastic in the playoffs. And again, what I said about some of the other guys added to that team should help out Travis Kelce. Stephon Diggs, right? Wild card, don't know, man. Think that he's still has a lot to offer. As long as he's comfortable, like not being the go-to guy and getting the ball all the time, like just like buy in to what the Texans are building here, and it's going to be a spread out offense. I think there's value here. I'd rather have him than Tank Dell. Tank Dell goes a little bit later than where I've seen him. In best ball, I get it. I think that's why he's wide receiver 25 because of the appeal of getting that stack. The Texans stack. So I think he goes a little bit higher there, but I think he's a pretty good target. I like Nico Collins, but 2 rounds later, pretty good target. T. Higgins, great target, right? Great target. Talked about that earlier. Boyd gone. He's put up some really good seasons. T. Higgins and his props too are pretty appealing. I think his touchdown props 5.5. I think his yards are 750. I go back, like, forget last year, the years before, right? 1,000 yards, 70 plus catches, 7 touchdowns, playing for a contract, maybe more willing to battle it out. That's possible. And just like Boyd and Mixon gone. So like T. Higgins is a target. Would have been interested in him if I didn't go chase. Trey McBride in there. I think he's just going to touch early, like the player, but we're really diving into last year, having Marvin Harrison Jr. there and also Michael Wilson was hurt. Hollywood Brown's gone, but Bride is a good player, but I just feel like, and Andrews and Pitts didn't go much further. I like Kincaid just as much as I like McBride, and I like him a hell of a lot more when you get him a couple rounds earlier. But I think I'm going to island on McBride, so I'm ready to eat that one if I'm wrong. George Pickens, right? Volume, bit of some on the field, off the field issues. Like, dude didn't want to block last year. I remember he didn't want to get hurt, but catch radius is off the charts, improvement at the quarterback position, and just a very thin wide receiver room. Love Terry McLaurin. Talked about him earlier. 1,000 yards, walking 1,000 yards. Daniel's going to be the 12th different quarterback there, but you hope that he can get up to 8, or if he can get up to 7, 8, 9 touchdowns, then he is a high-end wide receiver too, and he's been a wide receiver too. Without those touchdowns. So we could see, he's a really good target, man, I think in the 5th round, and to get him as your wide receiver 3, my goodness, I like it. Andrews a touch high. I think we'll just see a little bit more likely, I think we'll see some 2 tight end sets. We haven't seen 2 tight ends from the same team both be fantasy relevant since, I don't know what, Gronk and Hernandez. Could happen in Baltimore. It's possible. Joe Mixon, talked about him earlier, just never an efficient back, catches a lot of balls out of the backfield. I believe that the backfield's his in Houston. It's a good offense. It's going to be a tough schedule to get some tough opponents. To tape is out now on CJ Stroud, but Mixon should be fine. He should be team 9 here, rolling as the RB1. I prefer him as my RB2, but I think he's like the cutoff is like he could be your hero, could be your anchor. Joe Mixon, better offensive line. Tank Dell. There's be some highs and some lows, very boomer bust. It's just adding Diggs and having Dalton Schultz there and Mixon catching balls out of the backfield. Singletary didn't do a ton of that last year. We'll see what Mixon does this year. I'd rather have Hollywood, but again, as your 3rd wide receiver, there's a ceiling that can be had there. Kyle Pitts and myself talked about him earlier. Only 6 touchdowns in 44 games, 3 last year. Just poor play at the quarterback position. You get Kirk Cousins in there. They're going to use this guy. I think Drake London is going to touch early and Kyle Pitts going to touch late. I think those guys should be kind of almost side by side, like 1A, 1B. I think volume will be very similar. The ceiling's probably higher for London. Only 5 red zone rushing it, 5 red zone targets for him last year. It's not going to be the case this season. I like that they're using him in the red zone already. Like, and just like, oh man, he must be pumped. Like, oh wow, Cousins can throw me this ball in the back corner. A little bit of a fade, back shoulder fade. Man, he's got a big smile on his face. Same with Drake London. Jalen Hurts. Yeah, I don't want to say he fell a bit. I kind of see him go in around the Josh Allen range. I've seen him as the first quarterback off the board. This is a 6-point passing touchdown. Hurts had a new OC basically every year going back to high school. Last year was just so vanilla, the offensive play calling. So I'm excited about Hurts and Kellen Moore. Hollywood Brown, like him as a target, right? Deep threat guy. He's had some nice moments in the NFL. Great season with Lamar in his final year in Baltimore. Good season when Hopkins was sidelined with the injury for 6 weeks. And Health is a concern for Hollywood. Stay healthy, but man, playing with Mahomes is a good weapon for Patrick. Kenneth Walker, he's just okay. I thought his catches in the backfield come down a bit. It kind of stayed the same. He's his explosive games. He's just kind of a weird back to figure out like when those explosive games will come. Sometimes they come in matchups you don't expect. Pass happy squad last year, and I think going to be a little bit more with Ryan Grubb there as the OC. But Walker, like him as the RB2, but double down with Montgomery. Those are kind of guys that are very similar to me. One guy in Montgomery going to split the backfield a little bit more than Walker will. Lamar Jackson, right? You're going to say anything negative about Lamar Jackson? Going to run for sure. Ramondre Stevenson, I think he's a solid RB2. Just for me, just a running back on the worst team in football, worst offense in football. It's tough. It's tough for me to get behind that, but paired up with Bijan here is fine, and he's a great pass catching running back. We've seen that over the past couple of years. Antonio Gibson brought in. Will he cut into some of the pass catching? We'll see. I mean, he was a wide receiver converted running back. We'll probably see both of those guys on the field at the same time. I would say we probably see a little bit of Antonio Gibson on the field when they're down in games that they'll be down. And they're not a favorite in any of their 17 games this season. Calvin Ridley led the NFL in red zone targets last year. I think he was in a better situation last year, better quarterback, even though Lawrence didn't have a fantastic season, but still a crowded wide receiver room. I do prefer Hopkins ahead of him, but I think it's a really good wide receiver room with Will Levis and Tyler Boyd in there. Talked about Brian Callahan, two backs that can catch to the back. It should be a fun offense. Alvin Kamara. And so cheap offense is stacked too. I'm getting a lot of stacks there. Alvin Kamara, I mean, geez, this is a good pick, man. This is a really good pick. And in the 6th round, you're going to have a little bit of Taysom Hill there, 20 plus red zone rushing attempts, going to steal some stuff. But Kamara is still, 74 catches, 75 catches, one behind Breece Hall, led the NFL in targets and catches, I think. Catches for sure, I do believe. Catches because he missed some time. Check down Derek Carr. I mean, Carr's he's accurate deep ball, but we saw a lot of check downs from him. I was looking at some of the advanced stats. Derek Carr didn't have a lot of interception worthy throws. He had a lot of check downs, short A dot, things like that. But Alvin Kamara is going to catch a bunch of balls. I think he was RB3 in fantasy points per game last year in a PPR settings. And this is what this is. This is good value. This is a good pick. Like to have CMC and Alvin Kamara as a 1-2 punch and getting Kamara in the 6th round. My goodness. I like that. I would have went about it a different way with maybe some of the wide receivers that he built, but Kamara as your 2 and the 6 is nice. Rashee Rice. I'll be honest. I don't know what's going on with Rashee Rice. I know that his court date is in December. So may not get suspended until then. Does he get a suspension midway through the season? Is he there in the last few weeks? Does he get 6 games for? Does the suspension come next year? Honestly, I'm not really sure. I don't know. Not a lawyer. Don't know what's going to happen there, but I do believe he's going to get suspended. And if he wasn't, I think he would go higher. I would be very interested if he didn't have an off season that he did. Jaden Reed, touch early, love the player. This kind of does feel okay. I've seen him go a little bit higher. But this does feel okay. He could do a bunch of different things, line up all over the field. He's a gadget player. One of my favorite players last year. Him and Puka Nacua are the guys that I own the most of in best ball because they just went so late. But Jaden Reed here, Christian Watson in the same round. Dave Montgomery, I already talked about him earlier, not going anywhere. Dalton Kincaid, like the breakout. Dawson Knox not going anywhere, but I like the breakout. I think it's going to happen for Kincaid. Knox going to be on the field. They're going to block, and he's a red zone option there. But Kincaid's ready to take on a role, and I think if everyone's looking for who that Bills wide receiver 1's going to be, and I just think Kincaid's the guys you want. Aaron Jones in there, Minnesota, not the best offensive line. Aaron Jones hasn't been able to stay healthy. They didn't really get anything from their running backs last year. I think Aaron Jones is an okay target. He can catch some balls out of the backfield there. Deontay Johnson, again, to me, the ceiling isn't high. I think he's got 5 touchdowns last 35 games, but volume should be there, should get a lot of targets. I think Bryce Young is set up to have a little bit more success. Dave Canales is a good head coach, and the offense has improved. I never will be able to co-sign and never liked it at the time over CJ Stroud, but let's not write off Bryce Young just yet. My goodness, it's been 1 season. Deontay Johnson he's not a big target of mine, but again, the volume is there. I think I like him better as a 4 if you can make that work. getting that second running back early kind of pushed these other wide receivers down for me. Christian Watson, man, he's on the field is great, just running differently, try to figure this thing out with his hammy. We've seen some really good games from him. Of course, a lot of them came with Aaron Rodgers over a 5 or 6 game stretch, but last year the preseason, some stuff with Jordan Love, just couldn't stay healthy. CJ Stroud goes here. So a little bit later on, I've seen him as the second quarterback off the board. The touchdowns should be there. The pass attempts should be there. He's not going to run a lot. 6-point passing touchdown. I have Anthony Richardson ranked ahead of him. I have Jordan Love ranked ahead of him, but I think that Love and Stroud are on the same tier. I just think that they're going to have similar seasons, and one you can get a little bit early or later than Stroud. And I think Love's a good discount, but no, I'm not. He looks like a hell of a player. Keenan Allen, Ladd McConkey, love Ladd McConkey, right? Love him. I wanted him. Oh my goodness, I wanted him. I thought that I could get him. I even have Ladd ranked ahead of Deontay Johnson. I thought that I could get him on the way back. I just didn't know Team 11 loved the Chargers so much. It made me sad, Team 11. I wanted Ladd McConkey, man. I thought he'd come back to me as my 4. I've been getting him as my 4 pretty consistently, but just sharp room here. And as we get closer to week 1, I just don't think you'll be able to get him as your 4 unless, you have this build where you're not taking a quarterback or a tight end in the first 6 or 7 picks there. Jaylen Warren, I just run for a squad. He's going to, he gets a boost here in a PPR league, but we're going to see Najee Harris can be the lead again. He's going to be getting more goal line touches, and they didn't pick up the 5th-year option. They just run him into the ground. We have Hopkins here to start the 7th. So, I mean, like Ridley and Hopkins, I don't see much of a difference between the two. I don't. Ridley's going in the 5th, Hopkins here to start the 7th. I don't see much of a difference in production between the two. So I'd rather take Hopkins there. Evan Ingram, target hog, volume hog. Will he get more end zone targets? I don't know, man. Like Ridley had led the NFL in end zone targets, but you got Gabe Davis, who's a big red zone guy, and Brian Thomas Jr., who led the nation in touchdowns last year, has stretched the field. So I'm not sure. I know Jacksonville's talked about using Ingram more down the field. He should still get a ton of catches and targets. It's a good target. A good target tight end, yeah. Joe Burrow, it's fine, right? He's not gonna run a lot. Man, a ton of injuries. He's been unlucky. Some reports at Cincinnati that he's lost a little bit of zip on the ball, but it's just early. It's just so early. Burrow's fine. I'd rather Purdy. I'd rather Kyler. I think he's fine. JSN, I believe in the breakout, still crowded wide receiver room down the stretch. He was tied for the target lead on the team, I think, in like the last 5 or 6 weeks. He had 2 of his 4 touchdowns, I think, came in the final couple weeks as well. They were like game-winning touchdowns for him. I believe in the breakout, and I want to be a year early. I'm out on Lockett. I think Lockett, you can make a case that he's a decent target, value wide receiver. I think it was like his 48, 49. I don't know where he went here, like maybe 50, like at the end of the 9th. I just want to be in. Maybe he declines in the second half. He declined last year a little bit. He led the team in targets, but yards after the catch was a low number. And I think JSN is just here. I mean, I'm a big JSN fan, and Lockett will get a little bit older. I think the breakout's happening for JSN. I just last year, crowded, and that's kind of how I feel about Roma Dunze. I just don't think this is the year with Keenan and DJ and Komet, and just a lot going on there. Maybe Keenan gets hurt, or maybe Keenan doesn't play here next year, and we're looking at him differently for sure. He was in that tier for me, tier 1 with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Neighbors. Just didn't love the landing spot this year, but my goodness, he's going to score a lot of touchdowns. Caleb Williams in the NFL, like, got a stud. He kind of reminds me of Mike Evans. Throw it up, go get it. Sidetrack. Zamir White, great target. Love Zamir White, man. And I think he's going to catch more than people think. I think we have him roughly for 30 catches, but I think he could get up to 35, 40. The Raiders have talked him up, his pass catching ability. They've talked that up as well. And Tony Pierce wants to run the football. I don't believe Madison, don't believe in, 6th-round pick Dylan Labe. And, they have a decent offensive line. Jackson Powers Johnson, they drafted, arguably one of the better run blockers in the NFL. I don't think he's 100% at the moment, but run the Remington Award in college. I think he allowed 1 sack. It's just his first year as a center there, and he's going to be good on that offensive line. Plus, it's a decent offensive line anyways, as I mentioned. And, it was just a 4-game sample size, but 100 yards on the ground, I think 2.5 catches, 19, 20 rushing attempts. He's going to be a workhorse back. And I know when you watch the tape, you're like, oh man, Zamir White, like, really blow you away. But volume's king. And I think he's going to be top 10 in rushing attempts. I really do. And I think he's going to catch more passes than people think. So I think he's a great target in round 7. And he went just one pick before me, of course. I have a lot of shares of him. And I think he's a good RB2 for those that want to have that hero RB type strategy here. With Saquon, could have did it with Samir. I think that Raheem Mostert here, Team 10 did it. I think that's a good RB2 as well, hero RB type. Running back that you can pair up with that hero. Jameson Williams, right? I talked about the explosiveness, high upside, believe in the breakout, real opportunity to be the wide receiver 2. Of course, he's behind Amon-Ra, Laporta, and probably Gibbs. You can see the breakout towards the end of last season, big play waiting to happen. High upside guys. Gonna be some boomer bust games there, like the fact that they're inside a dome 14 games this season. I like Jameson Williams. Let's not forget that season he had at Alabama, that last one, and then what he's been dealing with here, injuries and suspensions. So this is a different offseason for him. He's ready, he's healthy, and he's getting some run. I think he's in for a year. I'm going to wrap up here at the end of the 7th, and it's just been a long night here. We're pushing on 2 hours. Appreciate you guys taking the time to hang out here. But Jake Ferguson led the all tight ends in targets. I think he's a decent target there for the Dallas Cowboys. I think he's a number 2 option there. I like him. That's like the cutoff for me. And I know that Kittle went like the cutoff is like the 9 tight ends. And I know I drafted a couple and everyone else drafted a couple. And, you want to have a couple, I think, in this format. But I want to have one of those top 9. And Ferguson's it. Like I'm fine with Laporta. Laporta, Kelsey is okay. McBride I'm out on. Andrews I'm out on. But Pitts, Kincaid, Ferguson, Kittle, Ingram, like them. I know Pat Freiermuth went here. I do prefer him over Njoku. I think that Njoku's a better player, but I think there's a clearer path here for some targets for Pat Freiermuth. And then DeAndre Swift. I'm not really in on Swift. Last year he was top 5 in rushing behind the best offensive line in football. He got hit behind the line of scrimmage like 27% of the time, roughly, which is the lowest mark among backs. And he still was just a low end RB2. So now he goes to Chicago. The offensive line is okay. It's not as good, but it's okay. And there's other backs on the squad. Khalil Herbert is on the squad. Roshan Johnson's on the squad. Swift's coming off a season where he had a career low in terms of targets and catches and receiving yards. It's not really in. It's not really interested in DeAndre Swift. I don't even know if he's going to be a third down back. I would expect him to be the lead, but wouldn't shock me. Like Khalil Herbert's a good back. Like he could struggle as a goal line back. It wasn't just Jalen Hurts stealing his rushing touchdowns. I mean, Jamal Williams took him a couple years ago. He led the NFL in red zone rushing attempts and rushing touchdowns. I don't think he's a great goal line back. This is some questions I have about DeAndre Swift. I'll do round 8 here, and then we'll wrap. Keon Coleman, man, I think he's going to catch a lot of touchdowns in the NFL. He is a rookie. I think that Shakir will probably be the guy that I have the most exposure to at the wide receiver position for the Buffalo Bills. I think Curtis Samuel going back with Joe Brady's best season with Brady in Carolina. I just think his ceiling is capped. It's like a low floor guy. Get some decent volume, a couple end arounds. It's not going to have the rushing season I did in Carolina. Keon Coleman with Josh Allen there is appealing, right? I mean, those guys are tearing it up right now in camp. I know because I got some friends, Bills Mafia, sending me videos every day. Keon Coleman catching just ridiculous passes from Josh Allen. So I don't mind taking the stab. I'd rather take the stab on him than Rome Odunze. I'll say that because of the opportunity there. Anthony Richardson goes a little bit later here, I think, because a 6-point passing touchdown. I mean, just was going to shatter the NFL in his rookie season from a fantasy standpoint. I think if he was able to keep that up, so like 4 rushing touchdown, but he didn't play with Jonathan Taylor. You had AD Mitchell there. Probably learned a little bit hanging out on the sidelines for a year, learning the offense. There's something to be said about that. See if he can stay healthy, protect himself, and it won't have the type of ceiling as these other guys in terms of passing touchdowns. But if he can get to 25, it'd probably be a win because he's probably going to run for 700-800 yards, and you could have 7-8 rushing touchdowns. James Conner. I talked about him. No healthy seasons on the resume, but when he's playing, he's awesome. RB10 in each of the last 2 years, and I believe in a half-point setting, catching balls out of the backfield, and final year of his deal coming off his first 1,000-yard season. Great campaign from him. Najee Harris didn't pick up the option, could run him into the ground, run for a squad. Warren will tick you off a little bit. Warren went earlier than him, which does surprise me. And I know this is a PPR league, but Harris is still going to catch some balls out of the backfield. I would not take Warren ahead of Harris, though, even in a PPR league. Like, I'm interested in either of them, but I would just take if you're telling me that I can get Harris in round 8 and Warren's got to be in round 6, like just give me Harris. Give me the guy that I think is going to touch the ball more on a run first team and going to get the goal line opportunities and majority of the red zone rushing attempts. Kyler ran a little bit more. He was the next pick here. When he came back from injury, he didn't run as much, and then down the stretch he ran. He's had some 21, 22 fantasy point per game seasons, which is what Allen and Hurts did last year, and Lamar 20. Dak 20. I think that's who knows what's going to happen again. It's just like not a lot of rushing upside there. But Kyler, adding Marvin Harrison Jr., I think it's going to be a fun offense. I like Trey McBride as a player. I just think pick 45 is a little rich, but I could be totally wrong on that. And then, Michael Wilson in there. So I like Kyler. I think he's a good target. I think he's going to run. I think he's going to average like 30, 35 rushing yards a game. Rome Odunze, again, talked about it earlier. Just fine player. Just think it's a little bit crowded. I don't mind it here as, the fourth. There's some other guys after him, though, that I would honestly, I'd rather have all these guys pretty much in the next few picks. Romeo Dubs is it's tough to compare the two because Rome Odunze is just like, seems like going to be such a more complete player than Romeo Dubs, and it's also crowded in Green Bay. So maybe that's a tough comparison there, but like, I just feel like it could be frustrating for Romeo Dubs, but to get him as the wide receiver 4 in high stakes, it's correct, I think, here, as opposed to best ball. I think guys are just pushed up, people getting stacks, but Keenan Allen is going to be a go-to guy for Caleb Williams. And so is DJ Moore. Romeo Dubs there to me. And then Jordan Love, one of my favorite quarterback targets here in round 8. Nick Chubb, right? Could see him in October. When he's back and he's healthy and he's full go, I'll be ranking him as a top 12 running back. There's no question about that. And then Raheem Mostert, not going to score 21 rushing touchdowns again, but Raheem Mostert's not going anywhere, folks. I mean, they extended him. He's going to be the lead. I know he's a little bit older, and you don't see these running backs typically. You get to that age 30, you start to see the drop off. But I think he's still a decent target as the RB2 here, RB type build here for Team 10. I dig it. Jaden Daniels rushing floor, right? And backing it up with Herbert. If it doesn't work out, you got you have a quarterback there that does have the upside to put up QB1 type numbers. Even though the offense will change, there'll be more run first. But Jaden Daniels should do enough with his legs, and he goes in the same round here as Anthony Richardson. Those guys could have very similar seasons. To me, I think Anthony Richardson, and again, the high stakes is it's very telling here, as opposed to best balls is very different, and guys are shooting for upside and stuff. But I see Richardson go much earlier than Jaden Daniels in best ball, and I would not be shocked if those two had very similar seasons from a fantasy football perspective. And then Brian Thomas Jr., who, man, the dude is flashy, can stretch the field. People say he's got a limited route tree. Listen, they just he was limited because they had Malik Neighbors. They didn't ask him to do certain things because they had Malik Neighbors. It's just straight up truth. And he can grow his route tree can grow, and he can do a lot of different things in the NFL. And I'm happy for Trevor Lawrence to get a guy like that, because I think he's a stud. It's interesting they signed Gabe Davis, and they just get a more souped up Gabe Davis who could do more things than Gabe Davis, but kind of could cut into each other a little bit this season. But I like Brian Thomas as a target, and I think I'm higher on him than most. So that's it. We're going to get out of here. It's 2 hours. We can't recap the rest. I'm fading here. We'll do more of these. We're going to try to do one of these every week. Check it out. Check out NFFC and play NFFC. Yeah, playnffc.com is the site to check out all the contests there. Check them out. Check out all the rankings and all that good stuff over at ftnfantasy.com. Hit me up if you have any questions at Chris Meaney. This has been a whole lot of fun. Again, we'll do a couple more drafts and a couple more builds. It is officially draft season in the NFL. So appreciate you guys taking the time to hang out, and we'll talk to you soon. Cheers.